Well, hey, everybody. I'm Dr. Roney. I am here with Heather Hiniker. Heather is what we'll call a guru in a couple of the modalities that Danielle spoke about a couple of weeks ago. So if you're new to the cancer conversation, I want to take the opportunity to welcome you. If you are a veteran, right, welcome back. And again, the topic tonight is going to be on a couple of the modalities that Danielle spoke about last week or 2 weeks ago. One of them is going to be CVAC, right? Another is going to be the BEMER, and another one will be the BioCharger. So Heather is what we would call a guru. This is from Danielle, who's a guru in a lot of things. She calls Heather the guru in those three modalities. So what we try to do is I think we're knowledgeable here on a lot of things, right? And obviously, we're able to facilitate the modalities here and do the training. But when we can get somebody that really knows their stuff, it's good to get them in front of you all so they can explain it in a lot more detail than maybe I know or we know. And then the other thing, we get to learn too. So I want to take the opportunity to thank you for being here, Heather.
Thank you.
And we'll get into that part in just a minute. So if you've been on with me before, I like to take just a minute or two, and I'm kind of dwindling the time down a bit on my review because I know a lot of you are here week in and week out, and you hear it constantly. But I do say that I think understanding a little bit about the philosophy of our treatment here, our treatment plan, I think is significant because a lot of people out there are reading and studying many different aspects of health and cancer care specifically, but they're having a hard time putting the plan together, right? So I think having an idea, if you're new to this, and an understanding of a step-by-step plan to follow, it just mitigates your downside. So, and that's really the main objective, is to make sure that you have a plan that you could follow, that you feel really, really good about, that can minimize your downside and maximize your upside. But I think one of the biggest things for me personally that I see is it creates a sense of peace for somebody. Heather and I were just talking about some of her health struggles over the years. And I think if she, thought about it, a good plan is what helped her the most, right?
100%.
Yeah. So I think with that, again, not to be redundant, but I do believe, articulating a good plan and a step-by-step, the details of that plan step-by-step are really helpful for somebody to go, oh, I have control, right? It's not just this diagnosis that they told me I have this diagnosis and I can't do anything about it. I just have to listen to the doctors and follow their orders, and that's it. And I think, again, part of this cancer conversation is empowering. And I think with the education and the information, I think that's what it affords you. So without further ado, I'll just break it down briefly. We have a 4-pillar approach that we follow here. The first pillar is going to be the testing, right? So we try to individualize the care plans much more than, say, in the conventional model, where it's kind of cookie cutter. I don't, to a degree, right? But if we start doing circulating tumor cell testing, which are those cells that cleave off the original tumor as it relates to cancer, cleaves off the original tumor and is circulating around your bloodstream, and that's never tested, well, those circulating tumor cells could turn into something else, right? They could plant and become a reoccurrence, if you will. So we want to know that if they say, hey, everything's clean, but you still have circulating tumor cells, as an example, that's something that we want to continue to work on. If hypothetically things like nagalase is up, which is an enzyme that is secreted by the cancer cells, if that's elevated, we want to work to bring that down, because that blocks your immune system from attacking the cancer cell. So if we could do things like that, test something called PHI, which helps us determine, among other things, if your cells have turned from aerobic respiration to anaerobic respiration, which is a low oxygen state, or they utilize very little oxygen. Well, that's helpful for us to determine whether or not you need oxygen modalities like CVAC, like hyperbaric, like EBU or ozone or something like that. And Heather will talk about CVAC as it relates to these oxygen generating modalities, at least one of them. So that just gives you a brief understanding of some of the testing that we do. That's a lot more in depth than you would just get with cancer tumor markers or scans or things like that in the conventional world. And there's many more, but for time, I'll save you. Second pillar is starving the cancer and killing the cancer. So starving the cancer is going to be utilizing repurposed drugs. If you're not familiar with them, they're drugs that are used for one purpose in the medical industry, but yet can be used in the cancer world to starve or block the pathways that feed the cancer cells. There's a little bit more to that story, but to make it simple, as far as a visual for you, these medications, and one of them, as an example, is metformin. It's used to lower glucose or blood sugar, right, in the conventional world, but yet it can be also used to block some of the pathways that feed those cancer cells. So that's just one example. There's many, many more, but that's considered a repurposed drug. And again, that helps starve the cells. Again, maybe not exactly accurate, but just for purposes, we'll leave it at that. And then the kill phase. The kill phase could be chemo, surgery, radiation. In our world, it's low dose chemo. So a 10%, maybe 20% max dose of the normal chemo. We use insulin to bring the blood sugar down, infuse the chemo agents, and it basically targets the cell much better. So we need to use, or we can use, less of the chemo agent. So that's a really good cancer killing modality without as much side effect. So, but just to give you an example, the kill phase could be conventional chemo, surgery, radiation. Again, in our world, low dose chemo is really the preferred option if we can do it. Third pillar is oxygenating the cell, and CVAC is one of those that can do that. It's alkalizing the cell because cancer cells are low oxygen, high acidity. It's increasing the voltage of the cell, which Danielle spoke about last week. And then it's also testing the nutrient levels of the cell and making sure that cell has enough nutrients, right? And then the final thing within that pillar is immune boosting. One of the, I guess, hallmarks of cancer is not only low oxygen in the cell, low or high acidity, but it's a weakened immune system. So really driving things like high dose vitamin C, mistletoe, sometimes thymosin alpha peptides, things like that into your body to really give that immune system the power and the boost that it needs in order to fight the fight today, but also prevent reoccurrence down the line. And then finally, pillar 4 is kind of what some of the things we're talking about tonight, is how can we fix the causes that created cancer in the first place, right? So whether it's cancer, or Heather and I were talking about autoimmunity, right? Say rheumatoid arthritis, that's in my opinion, a symptom or a byproduct. But there's multiple causes that will create that. Again, number one, the cellular environment, low oxygen, high acidity, low voltage, lack of proper nutrients, and then weakened immune system. That's the cell, right? But yet, if you go a little bit above that and why those things happen to the cell, you're going to get into the inflammatory process, right? Inflammation at the end of the day creates damage to the cell. And when that damage happens, you get low oxygen and high acidity and such, right? So we want to go a step over here and figure out the gasoline or causes to that inflammatory process. So I call it the fuel to the fire. And those could be things like infections, bacterial, viral, could be candida, as in fungal infections, could be parasitic. We could get into toxins and chemicals and heavy metals and things like that, right? And then in addition to that inflammatory fire, if you will, you could have blood sugar imbalances called dysglycemia. You might have anemia. You might have thyroid malfunction. You may be overexposed to electromagnetic fields. You might be putting in bad foods. Your gut might be compromised. Your liver may not be detoxing. Your epigenetics or your gene mutations could be expressing themselves. Things that we'll get into in subsequent cancer conversations. But just to give you an idea that there has to be something or things going on in the body creating that inflammatory process, creating the damage to the cell. So as long as we're looking through all of those, we have a good chance, in addition to immune boosting and changing that cellular environment, starving the cancer, killing the cancer, and then testing everything properly, we have a really good shot at mitigating your downside and maximizing your upside. And I know that's a quick, overview, but I think that gives you an idea of the difference between the conventional model of just maybe killing the cancer with surgery, chemo, radiation, versus all these other things that we now know that you could do, again, to maximize your upside. So it's kind of like there's one chapter of the book, right? But then there's another 19 chapters of that 20 chapter book that you could be incorporating to really make sure that you heal now and prevent reoccurrence in the future. So,
100%.
yeah. So anyway, without further ado, again, I want to introduce Heather because she's going to take you through the modalities, the CVAC, and what that is and what that does. She's going to take you through the BioCharger, what that is and what that does. And then she'll take you through the BEMER. All three of these we have in the clinic, highly researched, and have an objective to their function.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to make sure that Heather goes through that with you. We'll answer questions. And just if you're new to this, the questions, instead of going into the chat gang, they go into the Q&A section. And at the end, we'll pull up the questions and try to answer as many as we possibly can. So let me go ahead and share the screen. And then I will let Miss Heather introduce herself. There's a bio here that I want her to go over. So I'm going to hand it over to Heather, and then I will help with the slides.
Awesome.
Fair? Okay.
All right. I'm so happy to be here. So basically, I kind of fell into doing what I do about 15 years ago. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Western medicine wanted to put me on low-dose chemotherapy to treat it. And something within me was screaming, maybe that isn't the only route. This obviously was not my background at the time. And I just kind of went down the rabbit hole of trying whatever I could to help assist in reducing the inflammation in my body, because I was completely riddled with it from every single joint, from my feet all the way to my fingertips. And I was going away and doing different retreats and wheatgrass enemas and you name it, I was doing it, and I was getting progressively worse. And then I happened to be at the right place at the right time, and someone was talking about a CVAC pod. So CVAC was actually the first technology I have ever tried. I mean, you gotta think this was about 15 years ago. And the gentleman who was talking about it, his father had made an investment in the company, and it secured him one of the first pods in Orange County. And so he invited me to come use it, because there had been very small testing in regards to CVAC. So there was a test that proved it helped with chronic pain, fibromyalgia. Well, I was definitely in chronic pain. And the specific study that he was referencing was fibromyalgia, which was an autoimmune. So I figured I didn't really have anything to lose because I was this close to having to get on some kind of medicine.
Immunosuppressive, right?
Something. I mean, I couldn't even dress my daughter, who was in preschool at the time. She's now in college.
Wow.
She just started this week. So I was desperate to find some solution. And so I started to go into the CVAC pod. At the time, there were only about 16 CVAC pods in the world.
Wow.
Only a handful open to the public. And I was diligent. I went every single day, and over a series of weeks, I noticed my inflammation subsiding substantially, where before I couldn't wear shoes, I couldn't walk upstairs, I couldn't even put my own bra on or wash my hair. Now I was able to do those things. And it just opened my eyes to all of this. And I felt, my gosh, yes, I was in mortgage industry and super successful. And, I could go back into something like that, but I felt so compelled and obligated to share this technology with the world. So I dumped my entire 401k into starting the business, and
Wow.
we just started with 2 CVAC pods. And I had to be really careful because obviously I'm not a doctor.
Mhm.
I can't make certain claims. We don't treat, diagnose, cure, anything like that. I could share my personal story, and what had happened, because my hands were so tied in marketing it, we marketed it to professional athletes. So I'm just going to get into what CVAC does.
Yeah, no, I
if
love
that's
it.
okay.
I love
Okay.
it. No, great story though.
CVAC stands for cyclic variations in adaptive conditioning. And if you can see on the screen with the slide, it looks like it's an egg-shaped pod, basically. Mm-hmm. And when you're sitting inside of it, you're feeling different changes in temperature, air pressure, density of air. The easiest way to kind of visualize it is when you're sitting in the CVAC pod, if you have an empty plastic water bottle with the lid on it, the entire time CVAC's operating, it's going up and down in altitude. So it's a very progressive exposure, right? When we first expose someone to the CVAC process, we just do the real low elevations, like 3,600 feet. I can put an infant in the pod at 3,600 feet that has no concept of ear clearing. But as you start going higher and higher, the drops become a little longer, right? And so you have to be able to normalize or clear your ears. When you're sitting in the pod, in 20 minutes, you could go between 300 to 500 pressure changes. So remember that empty water bottle with the lid, the whole time it's expanding and contracting. Well, you don't necessarily feel that except a little bit in your ears, but what's happening on a cellular level, every single cell is expanding and contracting. It's getting that workout. And, over a series of weeks, I noticed that inflammation beginning to, leave my body.
So it was kind of dissipating some of those
Yeah,
inflammatory, they call them cytokines that build up.
exactly.
Okay?
And I always say, like, in layman's terms, it's basically getting rid of what's not supposed to be in the body, and then it's helping build up what is supposed to be in the body. And it's all about adaptation with CVAC. So it's not employing anything chemical or artificial. It's fresh filtered air that's going in and out, and it's like a vacuum basically that's taking oxygen molecules out of it. Well, your body is so smart and realizes when it's in higher altitude, there's less oxygen, so it innately knows to produce a protein that increases red blood cells, basically. And I'm just keeping this super layman. So people who use CVAC have more red blood cell production. Red blood cells are oxygen carrying cells, and so we know how important that is. Also, small studies have shown that people who use CVAC have a 16 times greater endogenous stem cell production. Stem cell is all about regeneration. And then it induces something called mitochondrial biogenesis. So as we age, or as we're exposed to certain toxins or have certain diagnoses, a lot of times our mitochondria, the batteries to our cells, become dysfunctional. And so CVAC helps with that process of making new mitochondria. And that's where we're getting all of our energy from. The mitochondria are producing ATP, which is needed for every process our body goes through. So if our bodies are able to make fresh new mitochondria, it's just going to help facilitate the healing process, everything, digestion, you name it. And so over that series of weeks, it's funny, when someone first starts using CVAC, it is a process. And, we always have these conversations and kind of just tell people, be cognizant of where you're at. But normally when people first start, they might use the restroom a little bit more because the body is flushing out what's not supposed to be there. There could be some different smells associated with that, depending on how many surgeries someone's had, how many times they've been under anesthesia, how many pharmaceuticals they've been on. On a cellular level, things like toxins and waste tend to collect inside the cell. And if the cell isn't functioning the way it's supposed to, those toxins and waste will accumulate, and that turns into inflammation. Inflammation on a systemic level is going to come out as some kind of disease state or diagnosis or pain state. So the CVAC really helps with that process. And honestly, it's not only everyone can benefit from CVAC, right? So we have the professional athletes that come in for an increase in VO2 max. So there was a study done with the University of Hawaii proving CVAC actually increases VO2 max. Well, what's been happening the last few years with the lungs and a certain virus that's going around and compromising the lungs? So we've actually seen a major benefit for people who have lost lung capacity because of that. And again, there's really not any contraindications with CVAC, which is awesome as well, because a lot of these frequency-based technologies, which I love, or PMF-based technologies, there are contraindications when it comes to electrical devices and stuff like that. With CVAC, there's not. Basically, if a doctor has not told you that you can't fly commercial airlines, you can do the CVAC pod. You got to be careful of when you're combining it with hyperbaric. You can definitely combine it, but there needs to be a 24-hour period before getting into the CVAC pod after hyperbaric. But you can go directly from CVAC into hyperbaric. So there's, just very small contraindications that most of them are short term. Like if you have a cold or flu, anything like that.
Clear the ears and the pressure. Right.
Exactly. But, to date, there's still only about 70 CVAC pods in production.
Really?
Only about 30 open to the public. So you guys are really, really lucky to have one here. Just what I've seen over a decade of, having a business with one, it's pretty incredible. There's not one person that can't benefit just from that adaptation process and increasing that oxygen.
And just thinking through this as I guess a former athlete, but I'm still up to speed on anything and everything that's going to help, right? There's a lot of athletes that go to high altitudes to train.
100%.
The reason they do that is because exactly what Heather said, their blood cells increase.
Mhm.
They have to. It's an adaptive process to sustain the higher altitudes. But yet when they come back down, their oxygen content is significantly more, so their stamina is significantly more. It's a really interesting, it's almost like there's a concept in the Olympics called blood doping.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah.
Blood doping is they're adding blood and really red blood cells, which carry oxygen, say the night before or a couple of days before an event, and that creates more stamina. So cyclists do that, endurance athletes do it, etc. So this, and I could be wrong, but I'm going to let the expert, this mimics that process. Fair?
Yes. So blood doping is illegal, obviously. And we
CVAC's not. But anyway,
exactly.
Sorry.
So what we call CVAC is a legal, not illegal, a legal
Yeah,
way
with an
of blood doping. But the thing with CVAC is it's not going to go over levels of your EPO. That would be a red flag. So
Right.
we work with like some of the top motocross athletes in the world, top UFC. These guys are being basically tested. They know what a normal EPO level is.
Right.
This will actually take it to the highest levels right before that red flag.
Without
And so
triggering
they're loving it. Yeah. And, it just, what you feel with CVAC, you do feel a sense of more endurance and stamina. I mean, it's really decreasing recovery times as far as you think about a UFC fighter in between rounds. Well, if they recover a lot faster, they're ready to go. And as far as people with compromised immune systems, like how I found it, the first thing I noticed with the CVAC is I was sleeping through the night. So a lot of times when we have these diagnoses or we're in chronic pain, we don't sleep. Right. I mean, we don't get any deep sleep because we're constantly tossing and turning. The first time I did CVAC, I actually had a night's sleep for the first time in 5 years. That's actually what kept me going because I'm like if anything, this is the only thing this thing does, sign me up.
Love my sleep.
Yes, it's very important.
Yep.
And there's ways to quantify it too. I mean, a lot of our clients, they're very savvy in regards to wanting to see where their HRV is and their resting heart rate and how much deep sleep they're getting, how much REM sleep. And time again, they notice when they start incorporating the CVAC, all of those markers are getting better.
The things that, and I did want to mention because, I've studied some of the best out there. I've studied Tom Brady. I've studied what he has done. And he's a quarterback for now. Well, he's retired now, but he went all the way till 45, retired last year. And you may know this is, you may be like, we know who he is. But anyway, I'm just explaining. But the point I'm making is what he did was extraordinary. And to go to the age of 45, still compete at an all-pro level, I studied what he was doing, and basically what he was doing was healing from the inside out. So what these high-level athletes have learned and are doing now is they're getting with people, whether it's scientists or people like Heather, clinics like this, and they're saying, look, I know my performance is based on my cellular health. What can I do to make sure that I'm low inflammation so I recover properly? I have high oxygen content so I recover properly. High oxygen content so I basically, my stamina is really, really good. And basically at the end of the day, what can I do so my cells heal faster than they break down? And that's health. At the end of the day, that's health. So whether you term it longevity or I term it anti-disease. And it comes down to the cell and what that cell is doing and how that cell is affected. And again, oxygen is a huge component. You'll talk to people about inflammation, you'll talk to, and everybody has their opinion on some things. But at the end of the day, definitely inflammation is a big deal. And low oxygen is a big deal in the disease process. So again, something like CVAC, and just for clarity, so I understand it as well, you're basically bringing from different atmospheric pressures, right? So you're going up, if you will, in altitude, bringing them back down. back up, back
Yeah,
down.
actually, the highest levels that a CVAC pod will go is 22,500 feet. Well, that's
Wow,
higher than base
geez.
camp of Mount Everest. Higher is not better. With any of the modalities I'm talking about today, higher is not better. So I want people to know that. In fact, the low ones are what we really are working with people that have very compromised immune systems, and diagnoses like something like cancer. The low ones are, because it takes less time to get up and less time to get down, they're flushing a lot more. So those are the ones that are
Got to worry
really
about the
working
hercs
on
and
the,
stuff, or no?
yeah, when we first started, I'll tell you, I was just so gung ho because of my
Sure.
experience. My mother at the time, she's always been really sick. She was on 13 pharmaceuticals when I first got my first CVAC pod. And I was just like, get in and stay in. And I didn't know any better. And so she went
So
through
more
one of the
better. Yeah,
worst
right.
Herxheimer's reactions I've ever seen. This a really bad detox. Now we have protocols in place that help mitigate that.
Yeah,
There's no need to go through that if you don't need to.
sure.
And also with, combining different technologies, one in particular that we're going to go over today, it really helps mitigate that process. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We're only as healthy as our cells are. And, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not looking at blood and stuff like that, but I do have a bioimpedance analyzer that's measuring something called phase angle. Phase angle is the integrity of the cell wall. And typically it's a marker that only goes down with age. All that it is, it's basically telling us how permeable our cells are.
Yeah.
So when we're babies, hopefully our cells are most optimal, right? They're super permeable. All the good stuff's getting in, all the bad stuff's getting out. And as we age, that membrane or wall around our cells tends to get a little bit more hardened and rigid. So now the waste and the toxins have a harder time getting out, start to compile, and then that's when we have issues. Well, I got this device about 4 years ago. Women usually average between a 4 and a 6 on phase angle. 4 years ago, I was at, 5.8, 42 years old, or no, 43 years old at the time. And I was like, cool, I'm on the high side. That's great. Today, fast forward, I'm at 6.3. So I'm over. So I'm definitely, like, we call it reverse aging at the cellular level. I mean, that's what it's about.
And that's the part where what we're learning today is and there's a term, longevity. And real quick, I just wanted to mention, when we talk about Herx reactions, it's really the detox. We're dumping too many toxins, and our bodies don't have the ability to clear them quickly enough. And that could be a liver issue, phase 1, phase 2 detox, all that. But sometimes it's just we're dumping too much for any liver to handle. So that's what a Herx reaction is. But what I was getting at, they're studying hard longevity. And again, I personally think longevity is anti-disease. That's what I think. And so if we're giving the cell what it needs consistently, you mentioned aging and the cell wall becoming less rigid. And my first thought is, well, there's common and normal in this world, right? When we go to our conventional doctor and you say you go with these symptoms, he's like, well, you're getting older. It's normal, right? And I try to, it drives me, it makes my hair cringe, right?
Yes.
I try to explain and this is a huge revelation for me personally years ago, was that there are common things that happen to people as they get older, right? But they're not normal. Normal aging is aging very, very, very slow. Again, as long as there's positive things that we could do for the body, or negative things that we don't, or positive things we fail to do, negative things we do. As long as we're understanding the cell, how to keep it healthy. Again, using Tom Brady as an example, putting super clean fuel in his body, his workouts are crisp. And have a purpose, his supplement routine, his oxygen therapies. I mean, he's done it all to where he could still walk on a field today and dominate, 100%. which is phenomenal. The point I'll make is most people his age that haven't done what he's done are 10 to 15 years older chronologically, or what I would say biologically. Again, the point I'm making is common versus normal. Normal is the body should last a very long time at an extremely high level, very, very good function, and very good brain power. But again, it doesn't because of the negative things we do to it or the positive things we failed to do to it. I hope I made that point.
Well, yeah, and it's never too late too.
Right.
We have, and I'm
100%.
sure you have patients that come in and they
Reverse it.
start coming in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and you can see that reverse aging on a cellular level. In fact, a lot of these people that are coming in, I'm seeing them shift a lot faster
No
than
question.
someone in their 30s and 40s.
So biological versus chronological age. So there's testing. We're going to start doing that here. I want to do it just to get an idea of where they are. Their chronological age, like 53, but biological age, 38, 39. That's good.
Yeah.
We don't want to be 53 and then 63 biological age, right? So all these things that we're talking about are important to be able to accomplish that. And it's totally achievable. You have to learn what to do and then try to implement it as best you can.
And honestly, it's totally achievable because we already all have within us, our bodies were created to regenerate and self-heal, but today's world makes that very hard. And so that's why being exposed to certain technologies is just helping to facilitate the process that our bodies want to do. Agree.
All right, okay, quick question. So you mentioned the VO2 max. So and then we'll move on to the next one unless you have other things, because I know we'll talk all day. So the VO2 max is your ability of your lungs to expand and then intake oxygen, excrete carbon dioxide. So when you're talking about increasing that, what actually does that?
Well, the pressure changes. I mean, if you are in the super high elevations and you try to hold your breath, and as it's going up in elevation, the lungs, you can actually feel your lungs expand without taking any breath. And then you are forced to push it out. Like your body is just forced. And so that's what it's doing. I mean,
it's basically exercising your lungs.
Exactly. Yeah. There's not much other technologies that do that to the level. Also, it's funny, most of us don't really think about ear issues unless you've been diagnosed with something like Meniere's disease or you have tinnitus. Well, CVAC's the only thing that actually works that ear. So it's almost like an ear workout as well. So I've had clients come in that have always had problems flying in airplanes or, people that do free diving and they're able to go further and not have issues with their ears. So for some people, that's one thing with CVAC. If someone is riddled with inflammation, typically it's everywhere. And so they don't realize how much inflammation they have in their sinuses and their ears. And so it's just a process. Most people are coming and they're trying to get at least 6 20-minute sessions in a week. So most clients come and they do 3 20-minute sessions twice a week, just when they first start, just to get that. It's like the more you're exposed to it, the faster all of this is going to happen.
It's adaptive.
Exactly. And then once you hit the levels and you're feeling good, you just go on maintenance and you can come. I have clients that have been coming for well over 10 years. They come once a week and do 2 sessions. I have some people that come twice a month and do 3. It's once you get up to those levels, it's just because as red blood cells are made in the body, we know red blood cells live for 120 days. So if you're increasing, they still have that 120-day life. So
love it.
Yes. So anyways, CVAC is incredible. And I'm so happy that the Center for New Medicine has one.
So when we increase our lung capacity, the VO2 max, we're going to oxygenate easier because we're taking in more oxygen. That's one benefit. At the cellular level, we're going to create, because of the atmospheric pressure changes and the adaptiveness, you're going to create more red blood cells, bigger red blood cells that carry more oxygen
to your tissues.
Is that fair?
Exactly.
Yeah. Can't beat that. Okay. Just wanted to clarify. Okay. All right. So that's the CVAC. I thought that was a great explanation. Okay. The BioCharger. So this is one that Danielle spoke about last week. Just to recap, she talked about MEAD, which is the testing for the voltage, right? The voltage, 25 millivolts is the voltage that the normal cell needs to carry
to function, right? And we're lucky if we're at that. A lot of people are lucky if they're walking around at that, believe it or not.
And that's what we're finding that with the testing. So one of the things, again, that happens at the cellular level, I don't know the chicken or the egg, and I'm not sure, maybe you have an answer for that, but I'm not sure what exactly happens or when the voltage decreases. Is it because oxygen content gets low, acidity goes up, it affects the voltage, the nutrient levels shift? I'm not 100% sure. Are you?
Not 100% sure either.
Either way, we know it happens. And Dr. Tennant, if you have been on these cancer conversations, he's the guru in voltage, right?
Voltage is healing.
Yep. So he wrote research very, very good extensive research on it. And I after that, I'm like, okay, this is a big deal. The point I'll make is the Mead testing tests the voltage. And then the BioCharger is one of the tools that we use in order to increase the voltage. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll let
100%.
Heather run with that one.
So BioCharger is actually one of the more recent technologies that I've stumbled upon. It was introduced to me about 3 years ago, and I'm very selective, when we bring something in, or, when we're endorsing something, just because it's our obligation to make sure there's no snake oil out there, right? When I first saw this BioCharger, I'm like, oh, that looks a little gimmicky, and what? You just sit in front of it? But the science behind it is incredible. And I'll share a couple personal stories that, it was like, wow, this thing works. So I actually, there's a doctor that I work with. I do some consulting for him in Tustin, and he had gotten one, and he's like, Heather, I can't believe you don't have a BioCharger yet. I'm like, really? You think it's that great? And, he's bought other technologies, and I just trusted him. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get one. Looked at the science, never even tried it. It arrived, and I literally thought in my head, it was maybe the size of like a blender, right? This thing comes and it is massive, and people sit around it, and basically what it's doing, it's emitting subtle energies. So, let's think about the majority of us that are inside, and how much of the time we're inside. More than 90% of the time, most of us are inside. So basically we sleep in a house, we get into our car, like all of these are sheltered environments that are not allowing us to be exposed to the subtle energies that the earth produces. We get to our office building that's typically on the second level, or whatever it is. And so we're not being exposed to what our cells and our bodies actually need. A platform like this is, in today's time, I would say it's necessary for sure. And so what it's emitting is 4 different platforms. So it's the only platform that exists that is incorporating all of these frequency-based modalities together. So it's emitting light, different than like a red light technology. It's emitting light through so there's certain gases that the earth emits. These are the gases that are actually excited by the PEMF, which is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. So when you look at the BioCharger, you'll see a red cylinder that goes all the way up and down. That's a large Tesla coil. And most of us have heard of Tesla. Most of us have heard of PEMF. If you haven't, it stands for pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. Super important. I think everyone kind of has heard of grounding, right? When you walk around barefoot, and why, that's so important. That the magnetism is needed so that our cells don't stick together. So what happens with our sedentary lives, when we're sitting behind desks or in traffic in the cars, our blood flow is slowing down. Well, our cells are beginning to kind of clump together and stick together. When you expose yourself to something like a PEMF, it allows the cells to repel each other, which is super important, because as we went back and we were talking about when waste and toxins start to accumulate, well, they're really going to accumulate if they have nowhere to go, because the cells are all stuck together. So PEMF is a very important component of this. It's also frequencies and harmonics. So this platform has over 1,000 recipes that are frequency based. So every single part of us is frequency. Our liver has about 700 frequencies that it responds to optimally. And then there are frequencies that are degenerative, that are not optimal. And so what this platform is doing is, by being exposed to it, it's helping reinstate those high level frequencies. So light, voltage, harmonics, frequency, and PEMF is what's being emitted. I can share a personal story. So when we first got this, I always test everything on myself first. I'm the guinea pig, and then my employees and everything. And so I'm like, hey, let's just try, a couple recipes. And one of the doctors who I was working with closely on this said, do Purify Recover. So Purify Recover is a specific recipe that kind of goes through and does a sweep of your cells for any pathogen. So viruses, bacteria, mold, candida, parasites. And so it's a 12-minute recipe. As long as you're within 6 feet of it, standing or sitting within 6 feet of it, you're being exposed to these subtle energies and the specific frequency that you're trying to work on. Some of the recipes do incorporate something like rife. So it's going to get rid of what's not supposed to be in the body. After 2 exposures of 12 minutes, I passed parasites for the first time in my life. I never had before. And they say like 90% of us have them. Right. Well, every single one of my employees has also passed parasites with being
using
exposed to it. Just
frequency.
that's the only thing that changed.
What's it called again?
So Purify Recover is the
Recover.
recipe, and then you can actually do what's so incredible about this. They have specific, because parasites have specific frequencies as well, and there's tons of different parasites. So there's if you know the name of the parasite, and I think you guys have a diagnostic that's
the Firefly or the F scan, and then the Firefly kills it.
So to nail it down and then go onto the BioCharger for that specific parasite, it's really effective. Do the camera went down. I didn't know if
oh yeah, geez, I don't know. Yeah, let me so one of the cameras, keep talking.
Okay.
I'm gonna text Alana, just keep going, keep firing away.
So, with a lot of these subtle energies, people aren't necessarily feeling, unless you're really sensitive to energy. If you're sitting in front of it, you don't really feel it. Now, personally, if I sit in front of the BioCharger and put my hands out, I can actually feel the frequency of it. Another story, if you can name it, there's probably a recipe for it. We run something called abundance in our office every day.
Okay.
And the same thing, one of the practitioners that I work with, she goes, just run it and see what happens. I am not exaggerating. Within about 24 hours, we exploded to where we were a wait list, and that had never happened before.
Interesting.
We went with it, ran it every day, and then my office manager, probably because she was getting overwhelmed, forgot to run it for a week. I'm like, God, what's happened? Like, we were going crazy. And then I go, have you ran abundance? And she's all, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. So we don't forget anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everything has a frequency. So it's super powerful. It's, one that I try to expose myself to at least once per day. And it's really they call it the human recharging station. So it's really just resetting your cells to a younger, more optimal state. That's the layman terms of what this is doing. But if you have something specific that has frequency, which everything does, it's definitely an important tool.
So good parallel there. So the Rife technology, if you're not familiar with it, what Dr. Rife had done years ago is he studied certain microorganisms, say a parasite, and he looked at the parasite under the microscope, and he figured out the frequency or the energy, of that parasite. And then he matched it. So when you match it, and it's like a vibration, it's like a singer breaking glass. That vibration is what breaks the glass, as long as you match that frequency. So he studied a bunch of different microorganisms and matched the frequency that killed it. And that's what Rife technology is. And it's actually pretty amazing.
Oh, it is.
Right.
Incredible.
So this, I didn't realize this did that.
Yeah, not all of the recipes have it, but it's the ones that need it definitely have it.
And that's to your point, the Firefly, the F scan is similar to Rife technology. It has a list of the parasites in there. Ashley, who runs it now, can test the body via the F scan, find out what's in the body, and then use the Firefly to kill it using those frequencies. So this is similar. Adjunct. That's what I was thinking.
Use them together, because it takes a village.
Yeah.
That's really what I've seen with a lot of these things. I wish it was just CVAC that put my RA into remission. It's
This is, and if you've ever been with me, I talk about layering. I talk about how I think over the last year or two, the results that we've gotten, consistently now is secondary to the layering and proper layering. Meaning if we're going to, I don't know, I look at it as if we're testing the cell better. So we're doing everything from Mead now and Molly's equipment, the bioimmune and the 3D body scan, doing live blood analysis, testing the voltage of the cell. And then when you get enough of that data, and then you can have devices like this to recharge, reoxygenate, etc. I just feel like you're turning things around consistently that cause cancer or cause chronic disease. So if you're throwing enough water on that fire, the fire is going to get less and less.
100%. But another thing that really resonated with me with what you said, as a practitioner, it's really our responsibility to make sure we're not doing too much at once, right?
Sure,
And
absolutely.
so, you know, working with a facility like Center for New Medicine, I mean, the most legit facility in America as far as functional and integrative, you guys do take that very seriously.
No question.
You know, there's a term called biohacking, and there's a lot of, you know, little places opening up and people are getting into it because they love it, but they're not doing the,
right.
they're not taking the time to really get the education, and then also to make sure that they're not hurting people by exposing people in the wrong order or too much. And you guys have a really good handle on that.
And that's the testing is, I think, incredibly important. You know, I call it objective quantification, right? You objectively quantify things, you can see where it's at, and then we can try to figure out how to fit it in to the overall plan. To a great point, because you know, especially in the cancer world, the diagnosis of cancer, we need to make sure that we're prioritizing. So of course the testing is critical, but starving and killing the cancer is probably that pillar, which is pillar 2, is probably the most important part of this, right? Whether it is surgery, chemo, radiation, low dose chemo, immunotherapies, whatever that looks like. And I always say, you hear me say it, sometimes you need some more ammo, you know, when there's an aggressive diagnosis. It's just the way it is. We don't love it, but sometimes we just have to integrate more than we want to. And I'll leave it at that. The point I'll make is, though, if that's the big priority, and then we're working on the oxygenation, alkalization, immune boosting, you know, testing the voltage of the cell, or Molly's testing that's looking at parasites and looking at different things, we then have to figure out, again, to your point, all right, where's the priority? Because it's hard to do everything at one time. We can't just throw the kitchen sink at somebody. They'll get overwhelmed. You know, and experience tells us this. So it's a great point that we can get this data, but then we can, you know, kind of like eating an elephant, this pillar 4, as far as clearing the causes or fixing the causes, is really related to this functional medicine approach of healing the body. It's just going to take time. And then we have to prioritize things. And a lot of times the history, feedback from a person, you know, what these scores tell us, you know, if somebody's at like a 5 on their mead, yeah, biocharging,
starting at that cellular level. And what I love about the biocharger is, yes, it will incorporate something like rife if needed, but in that same recipe, it's incorporating frequencies that help like to regenerate and heal. So it's a great combination. I'm really impressed with the company itself and their platform, and just, you know, you get to sit in front of it. It doesn't really take much work.
The science is definitely, you know, I'm with you. I saw this thing, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm like,
what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm being 100% transparent. But then when you do the research on it, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, who wouldn't, right? Who
like
wouldn't
80
benefit?
years of research backed up with this. So it's another important tool.
God bless Dr. Keneally, because she comes up with this stuff. And she's always researching. She's probably the most curious person I've ever met. And then she'll bring this stuff in and we're like, whoa, let's, you know, we have to get really, really good at all the stuff that we have. And she's like, no, this is going to help people. We need to get it. We're like, okay. And then she's right. She's awesome. Right on. She's right on. So I have to give her immense credit, because I think a lot of times I'd sit on the sidelines too long, you know, because I want to analyze it. I want to study it more. I want to do all these different things. And she's like, I've done the studying. It's good. Let's get it going. I'm like, okay. So
great.
Anyway, so that's the BioCharger, ladies and gentlemen. So obviously, you know, I learned a little something. I didn't realize it had those 4 different capacities, right? Harnessing the types of energy. So that's significant. I honestly didn't know it had a little bit of that Rife technology built into it as well. So real quick, you can program it. There's many different programs.
It's the only technology that has this type of platform as far as their cloud, and they're constantly updating it. So there's new, depending on, you know, the latest greatest virus out there or whatever it is, they're constantly finding new frequencies and making new recipes in accordance. So
awesome. So it's evolving consistently. It's already really good, but it's evolving consistently. Okay, so that's the BioCharger. The last one that Heather's going to talk about is the BEMER. And I think this is the one you were talking about doing in conjunction with the CVAC. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, 100%. So I'll let you roll on that.
So this technology, I've actually had one personally since 2016. In fact, 95% of our clients have them at home. So this is something, yes, it's offered at the center and everything, but it's something to consider having access to it on a daily basis. And I'll go into why. So BEMER is, it's not a car. This stands for bioelectromagnetic energy regulation. And what BEMER is, it's classified as a PEMF device. So again, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. There are hundreds of PEMF devices. Before we brought this in to Ascent, I really went down another rabbit hole, and I thought I was going to get the $40,000 big mama jama high powered PEMF because higher is better, right? I thought it was better. Well, come to find out, there's out of the hundreds of PEMF devices, there's only one that has studies specific to the wavelength that it's emitting. There's also only one that has multiple patents on that signal or wavelength. And then there's only one that's classified by the FDA as a class 2 medical device, and that is BEMER. What BEMER does that no other PEMF device and no pill can do, it increases an action called vasomotion. So let's real quick. So this is working within the circulatory system. Most of the time when we talk about the circulatory system, we automatically think of veins and arteries because that's what Western medicine tends to treat. Well, the veins and arteries only make up 26% of your circulatory system. So the large majority are your capillaries. Those are the teeny tiny vessels that go through every tissue, every organ. And within those capillaries, that's where your cells are actually exchanging nutrients. Yeah, that's where waste is being disposed. That's where hormones are being exchanged. So if you can optimize the way in which that's happening and the flow, your body is going to regulate and be able to do what it needs to do. So you think your heart is responsible for pumping blood through your whole circulatory system. The heart pumps blood through your veins and the arteries, so 26%. But that expansive network of capillaries, like an average person has about 75,000 miles of capillaries. If you take each one out, that'll go around the earth almost 3 times, and you and me. It's pretty crazy. Well, there's no way our heart can pump blood through that network. And some of the capillaries are the 10th of the width of a human hair. So like maybe one red blood cell goes through at a time. They're very minute. So the capillary system has its own action. It's like a pump. It's the constriction and dilation of the capillary walls. Someone who is in their prime, an elite athlete, they might have, 4 to 6 of those pumps in 1 minute. As we age, or if someone has a diagnosis like diabetes, you might have only 1 pump in 4 minutes. What this device does that no other device can prove that it does is increase that action by about 30%. Along with it, it's increasing oxygenation of tissue by 30%. So hand in hand with the CVAC pod, it's incredible. And it's funny, because we started again with CVAC, and I had that business for probably 4 to 5 years, just CVAC. I thought I was just only going to have tons of CVAC pods and we were going to go from there. CVAC is a process. So there was a lot of hand holding involved, and there was a lot of, retracing or Herxheimer's reactions too, before getting this learning. Exactly. Yeah. With integrating the BEMER and doing it prior to CVAC, we're allowing all the cells to be separated. We're increasing the blood flow and the oxygenation. So now when they get into CVAC, it's so much more effective. It doesn't have to do all of that. Right. And what I noticed was people were starting to realize the benefits of CVAC about twice as fast. So as far as, client retention and everything, right, this was the deal. And, again, people are coming in, they're doing an 8 to 20 minute session on the BEMER. And on the days they're doing that, they're noticing, wow, I'm sleeping so much better. Oh, geez, I had major, energy. It wasn't overstimulating, but I had energy that was sustained throughout the day. Personally, when I used BEMER for the first time, again, I was in 2016. I used to have a crash like around 3, 4 o'clock where I'd go pick up my daughter from school and I'd just be like, I just need a tiny power nap, like 20 minutes, you start on your homework, I'll be right back. And that was just a consistent habit that unfortunately I was getting in. Well, from the day I've done BEMER, I don't have those crashes at all. It's a pretty miraculous device. And, it's not, a CVAC pod, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Most people can wrap their head about acquiring these. And so basically basically 1 8-minute session on the BEMER is increasing that blood flow and oxygenation by about 30% for 12 to 16 hours at that high level. So if you do it twice a day for 8 minutes, you have optimal blood flow 24/7. So that's why it's suggested, if you're able to get one. But even doing it, coming to the center and doing it, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, it doesn't start falling off until that 16-hour mark, but it still lasts the benefit several days. And that's actually all been proven with their studies as well.
Yeah. So it's basically, if I understand it correctly, microcirculation,
100%.
right? So at the very like fine cellular level, it's pushing blood through these channels that really don't get,
what happens, like, as we age, we'll see a lot of times elderly people, they have numbness in their fingertips and their feet.
Toes, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's because the body is super smart. It's going to preserve and protect what's keeping it alive. And so this kind of stuff doesn't really matter. That's one thing, like I notice with clients, they get blood flow throughout again. I mean, there's certain diagnoses like Raynaud's too, that this is super effective for as well.
All right, so I think I read studies on it a couple of years ago. Didn't NASA use this?
Yeah,
NASA.
So it was awesome. NASA,
not NASA. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I said that, but NASA.
NASA spaceships.
Yeah.
They are, I mean, rocket scientists, right? They can probably create anything that they put their minds to. And because BEMER has the patents it did, they want something when astronauts go up to space, their bone density is compromised, their blood flow is compromised because
muscle tissue
all
atrophy.
Of that. And so what they noticed is, being exposed to this and having access to something like this, oh, wow, if that's going to be increasing blood flow and oxygenation and keeping things flowing, this is going to be something great. We want to build it into our spacesuits. Well, they couldn't do so without infringing on the patents. So they actually came together with BEMER, and that's in the works right now as far as making a spacesuit that incorporates this specific technology. So that
as soon as I heard that, I'm like,
volumes.
Okay, it's got to be pretty legit.
The real deal.
But yeah, patients love it. I know, and again, it's that layering effect. So I love the fact that you're looking at it. You looked at it this way. Hey, if we do this, then we do CVAC. We're going to just increase the, we're going to optimize their level of function, but then they're, I guess, expediting their healing.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
And the center actually has acquired the brand new generation. So for 10 years, BEMER was exactly the same configuration and everything. And they just came out with a brand new one that, in my opinion, is more powerful. Yeah. It's incredible. And it's a lot sexier looking too than the old school one. So it's great.
All right. Yeah. No, I think I love it. I studied this one a few years ago. Anita, who's here, was very big into BEMER. She's like, you have to learn this. You have to study it. So I did the studying with NASA, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. I watched a bunch of videos on it, and then there was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll probably bastardize this a little bit, but I believe there was some type of endurance event. And I could be wrong about
the Race Across America, RAM.
Yeah, so Race Across America, the four teams, or
four-man team.
Four-man team. One gets out and rides. It's a bike race, right?
Across America.
Gets out and rides. Van follows them. I think I'm correct on this. And then another one, they get in, and then another one rides, and so forth. If I'm not mistaken, they had BEMER technology.
They did.
How much faster did they finish the race than the next?
It was like a day earlier. I mean, they obliterated. The record, and they made another record, and they're continuing to do so with some of the larger teams and everything. So that's another thing. All of our professional athletes have these, because if it's the recovery.
It's oxygen. It's blood flow and oxygen, and again, oxygen and stamina go hand in hand. Or endurance. So
and it is affecting. This is another thing that helps affect the phase angle or the permeability of the cell wall as well. I personally was lucky enough to do a Mead test, and I was not. It was before BioCharger and the biomodulator. Within 3 months, I went up 12 points. I'm in the 30s now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it was
doing a combination.
Yeah. And then, I know BEMER plays a huge role in that too. So it's the village we're talking about.
Yeah. So, and I did want to point that out, because we're incorporating with all our new patients the Mead testing. We want to know where that voltage is. Again, based on Dr. Tennant's research, we think that is substantial. So People ask, well, how long and what do I need to do? And it's hard to explain, but you said you're up about 12 points in what, 3 months?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think it does depend on a lot of other factors as well.
100%.
Yes, we're biocharging, the biomodulator, you're grounding. I think exercise has a big part, especially
Nutrition.
nutrition. It all plays a big part in increasing the voltage. As does, again, I don't know if I said this, but oxygenating and alkalizing the cell, the nutrition of the cell, et cetera. I think it all matters, as well as knocking the inflammation down and start correcting some of the causes. All of a sudden, I think it all matters, is the point I'm making. I think that's where the layering comes in from a plan standpoint, as to where you're going to probably create a lot more predictability than chance when you incorporate a bunch of these strategies together. That's my philosophy anyway on things. So anyway, okay, so we'll go to questions. I know there's quite a few. So again, in the Q&A is where we're going to go to questions. I know there's a chat line, but questions will go in the Q&A. So how is CVAC different from HOCAT?
So a lot of times we get this question, and then also how is it different from hyperbaric? So CVAC is adaptation, right? So instead of being in a space that's being flooded with, say, oxygen or ozone, it's taking the oxygen out and it's forcing the body to adapt and become stronger on its own. So, obviously hyperbaric has a huge role in healing and everything. On a human performance level, with me working with a lot of professional athletes, I've always said that I prefer CVAC for that, because it's still oxygenating the body to higher levels, increasing that VO2 max, red blood cell production, but it's the body that's doing it. It's not relying on something outsourced. That's not to say there's not a need for hyperbaric, because there definitely is, and there's some great, combination protocols with the two. So it's basically taking out, and it's the body that's doing the work, because the body is the miracle.
Which is what we do if we go to high altitudes. It's less oxygen, right?
Yeah, and sometimes people hear that, they're like, that's not good.
Yeah,
what's
no,
great is your body knows
exactly
what to do.
It adapts to it. So that mimics basically that concept, right? Yeah, makes sense. All right, so what type of infections does CVAC reduce? What about parasitic infections?
So never can make a claim specific to that, but I can tell you, even before we were incorporating things like the BioCharger and all of that for parasites, people passed parasites just using the CVAC. I never did personally. What CVAC is about is basically eliminating what's not supposed to be in the body. So that can be all the way down to inflammation. That's what it did for me in my RA. But if there's other things in the body that aren't supposed to be there, we've seen great protocols in conjunction with some mold protocols that you guys do here, mold exposure. CVAC really helps facilitate to help get rid of that on a cellular level, the mycotoxins and everything. So
I mean, pushing it out, but also oxygen. These microorganisms cannot thrive in a high oxygenated environment. So not only are you pushing it out, but you're oxygenated, right?
Yeah, supposed to.
Yeah. So good point. It's not saying that the CVAC is going to kill these things. What it will do is help oxygenate and push things out to be able to help that. Okay. So how does the pressure change in the CVAC do all those things you discussed?
So I mean, like I said, the easiest way to when you're going up in an airplane and then you descend down and you feel that pressure change, because the air pressure, that's less, basically it's less oxygen molecules when you're in higher altitudes, but depending on how fast you drop, you feel that difference in your ears. That's why the water bottle will collapse and then it'll fill up again. It's just a part of the CVAC process that naturally happens, natural.
It's like a pumping mechanism almost.
Exactly.
It's this.
Same thing with the temperature changes. As you go up in high altitude, the air becomes thinner and cooler. You can actually feel that at the highest elevations, that it's like 51 degrees in there, and then boom, it'll drop to sea level and it'll be in the 80s. That temperature change is part of the adaptation process as well.
So this one is a red light therapy versus CVAC. Pretty big difference.
They're very different. And in fact, I love both. I am a huge believer in red light therapy in regards to increasing nitric oxide, what it does for blood flow on the higher, like at the veins and arteries, what it does for inflammation combined. They're amazing. In fact, I had some kind of weird virus last Thursday. I was afraid that I was still going to have it today. I basically went in every single day over the weekend and did my red light, my CVAC, my BioCharger. Like I'm 100% today. So it's the combination, it's just working. Everything's working within a different system of the body, but on a cellular level, but they all do different things.
Yeah. You're detoxing and increasing heat shock proteins and doing different things with that red light and sauna. And this one, can do similar, but it's really oxygenating, right? The cells.
And flushing out what's not supposed to be there. So I'm not sure if CVAC would be safe for lung cancer. There's no contraindication when it comes to cancer in regards to that. In fact,
it's actually, I would think very helpful simply for two reasons. Number one, you want the healthy cells to work better, in my opinion, with the lung. And then number two, oxygen to those tissues is going to be a helpful process as well. Does it help with sticky blood or symptoms of blood clots?
So we had someone come in a long time ago to do live blood analysis for our clients for a couple of days. And the difference between before and after of the stickiness or rouleau was profound. We actually have that proof still that we refer to. So yes, 100%.
All right. So how frequently do you need CVAC and how many sessions? I would think that's diagnosis related, maybe, right? Or
depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Again, the more you're exposed to it at first, the faster things are going to happen. But because it's increasing red blood cells and those live for 120 days, it can be as slow of a process as you want, or you can bang it out and it can be as fast as you want. So it just really depends on the other protocols and things that you're doing that the doctors can probably dictate that a little bit more.
Again, probably depending upon objective and diagnosis and things like that. Is it considered oxidative therapy?
So oxidative stress is associated with pretty much anything we do, whether good or bad. So there's oxidative stress associated with exercise. Yes, this completely helps to flush out the oxidative stress or any waste or toxins associated with that.
Okay, let's see. Can we use CVAC if a person gets sometime rapid heartbeats, SVT, and palpitations?
No contraindications, as long as the doctor has not forbid them from going on commercial airlines, that they're safe to go into the CVAC.
Okay, so let's see. Susan asked, chemo and radiation in 2014 for breast cancer, letrozole for 9 years, and to take until 7/1/24. New functional med doctor seen today and says that I am on hold until treatment is done. So can't detox now. I'm concerned about cognitive decline from low estrogen, from the letrozole. My memory is not good. I'm 67. Would the CVAC help my brain? What is the cost?
Such a good question. And I'm so glad this came up because I failed to mention. So CVAC actually works very synergistically with our lymphatic system to flush out what's not supposed to be there. But our brains have their own lymphatic system called glymphatic. And usually it's activated during sleep. CVAC is one of the only technologies that actually helps facilitate that. The CEO of CVAC, he helped found MRI, he's been in this realm for a long time. And when he first found CVAC, he was in his 60s and he was saying he had, some cognitive decline for sure. The first time he did CVAC, he said it was like a windshield wiper over his brain. It really helps with that. But I think that has to do with the flushing of the glymphatic system. And then again, you're increasing oxygen. We know how many capillaries are in our head region. So if you're increasing the oxygen in the red blood cells that's happening systemically, it's also going to have an effect on your brain.
Brain needs two major fuels, oxygen and glucose. So if you're increasing the oxygen, there's that microglial activation. So this goes into the next question, does it help Parkinson's, right? So I would think, and I'll let you answer, I would think any neurodegenerative disease lights out for it.
I mean, I can, I have to be real careful, third-party testimonies, but my
Sure.
my stepdad was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. And he came at the beginning of this year. He had declined so fast that he was in a wheelchair, could not find his words, wouldn't even make eye contact with us. And after about 3 days of doing a few specific protocols, one including CVAC, obviously, he was like night and day. I mean, where he was walking around, having conversations, and it's definitely made a huge dramatic change in his cognition. So anything to do with the brain.
Yeah, good to hear. What is the name of the technology that tests for cellular age? Oh, that's just, there's a test.
Yeah.
It's cellular age versus biological age. There's a specific test that can be done. We're working on that. It's out there, but I'm trying to find, there's some different companies. So I'm trying to find the best. Once I get it and I trust it, I'll let you know. Tinnitus or tinnitus, depending on how you pronounce it, will that help with?
Hand, like time over time, people are coming for something specific and they don't even tell me about their tinnitus or ringing in the ears. And that's one thing that they're like, and the ringing in my ears is gone. It's just, I think it has to do with the constant activation and the clearing.
It's
yes.
Interesting. It makes some, when you said that, it's like anything, you work it.
It's an ear workout. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an ear workout, which is, you never think of it. Yeah.
Pressure changes in there. It's doing something.
And there's a lot of structures in there that you might not know. There's bones in there, and there's different tympanic membranes, and there's so much, and there's so much nerve activation in there too. So it's interesting. Let's see, where could somebody purchase a BioCharger?
I think you guys are affiliates, so I would definitely contact the center.
We definitely are. I'm just, I think easiest way to facilitate that would be to go through the store. The store definitely has those contacts for you. So I'm not sure the cost and all that, but I know we're a facilitator. And how does the NES Bioenergetics MI Health device compare with the BioCharger and BEMER frequency healing systems?
So that device, if I'm not mistaken, it's more one, it's a microcurrent device. And so it's not employing all of the different frequencies. So it's just strictly frequency via microcurrent, but you're not getting the light frequency, the harmonics, the voltage, the PEMF. So BioCharger is one of the only platforms that combines all of those together and has, proven recipes to target specific things. I think that the My Health is something great at home. I think some, clients have that, but as far as incorporating everything, it does not do that. And then the BEMER, same thing. I mean, the BEMER is doing something that nothing else does. Even if I know there's high-powered PEMF devices here as well, and they have their place. BEMER, in my opinion, is one of the only ones that it's low level. So there's a specific law. It's called Arndt's law, and it talks about high level, high-powered things, and how at times, like something like 5G, it can arrest and retard cellular function, or the low levels are the ones that help support and regenerate cellular function. Well, that's what I love about BEMER, because it is a lower level frequency in PMF, and it's specific wavelength. So it's a patented wavelength that's specific to affect the increased blood flow, the vasomotion of that. So there's nothing else that does that because of their patents. So
and you said that not, sorry to interrupt, but you said that wavelength that is used in the BEMER is the only wavelength that's actually tested.
Yeah, it's specific to its signal. So the BEMER signal is a multi-dimensional waveform that's affecting that mechanism of action.
All right. So can you have a BioCharger in a room with a TV if the TV is off?
If it is off, yes, that's a great question. It does definitely affect electronics. So I've had my cell phone near me and it will randomly text people, and I can't even use it. So definitely best to have your electronics turned off or at least 6 feet away.
Am I mistaken if I held a light bulb or something in there?
That's when I think it's here. So there's like a fluorescent light bulb not plugged into anything. And when it's sitting on the table, it's not lit. The second you pick it up and use your body as the energy transfer and hold it on the other end, it lights up. So it actually is a really cool way to prove that we are energy and that the energy is passing through us to light up a light bulb.
Pretty cool. I haven't seen it myself, but I heard
it's fun.
Let's see. If you're doing ozone therapy at home, am I getting similar benefits of the CVAC or to the CVAC? It's a little different. I mean,
Yeah,
listen, ozone's great.
amazing.
Ozone's great, but you're probably going to get the flushing part of
Yeah,
it.
you're not getting rid
Yeah.
of as much, the waste and toxins and the actual adaptation response that your body gives.
Yeah.
There's really nothing that does what CVAC does. Like
Yeah.
it is the only thing that's actually doing what it does to the level. I mean, a lot of times I think I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, when people first start to use it, they notice different smells coming out of them because it's getting rid of toxins. It could be metals, it could be, old pharmaceuticals, whatever it is. Like there's a smell associated with that, and people talk about that a lot. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I was just
in
thinking,
conjunction with ozone, it's
oh, for
awesome.
sure. Absolutely. But yeah, ozone's excellent. It's gonna, again, it's gonna oxygenate the cell. It's gonna kill off some things. But when you're looking at that adaptive response, I just keep going back to athletes
Well, and it would be
training at
great to do
high
CVAC
levels.
after that,
Right.
just to help facilitate and make it more effective.
Agree. Okay. Okay. So what do you mean by the Firefly? So it's a device here at the clinic. They have the F scan, which scans the body for parasites or the gut for parasites. The Firefly is the device that matches the frequency of that parasite and destroys it and basically kills it. So that's the Firefly. How much is the BEMER?
I know you guys sell them in the store. They're $5,490.
And that's the new
That's the
technology.
new one that actually comes with 2 separate mats. I see there's a question says, will it work under a fitted sheet? So the new generation actually has something called the BEMER bed.
Yeah.
Super, super thin. It just goes under your fitted sheet and you don't feel it at all. It's incredible. And then it also comes with a full body that has more coils. So it's emitting that patented signal.
So group buy on the BEMER. Sharon, that's a good question. I'll have to pose that one and get back to you. If there is, then we'll figure it out. I'll let you all know, but I'll ask that question for sure. So yeah, work under a fitted bed sheet. How does one order a home BEMER?
Contact the store.
Yep, the store has it. Okay, same purchase. How much does a BEMER cost? Yep, got it. What is layering? Okay, so good. Layering is just simply using multiple modalities in conjunction with one another to get an increased effect.
Yeah, and sometimes you can do them at the same time to save time. Like
Yeah.
you can be on the BEMER while you're getting your IV infusion or doing ozone or whatever it is. Like we love to layer things together just to,
increase the effectiveness, or a lot of times using them together have a much more beneficial effect on the body. So yeah, that's layering. Let's see, cost. BioCharger, BEMER, we got BioCharger. Do you know the cost on that one?
It's around 17,000.
About 17,000. Okay. Where can we utilize these treatments if not a patient? I'm in SoCal nearby. Not sure.
Just Google.
Yeah.
Google the specific technology and
then
I'm sure something will come up.
Yep. CVAC or BEMER better or complementary approach to clearing blood clots in the lungs? So CVAC or BEMER better? Yeah, you might. You know what? This is one where I would say you'd probably combine those.
And actually
right?
with
Or
BEMER,
no?
there is a contraindication. BEMER does have more contraindications than CVAC. One of them is deep vein thrombosis. You are supposed to consult a doctor. So the safer of the two, because it's not a contraindication, would definitely be CVAC.
Okay. Necrosis, is CVAC good for necrosis?
100%. I have seen incredible things as far as healing. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just increasing the oxygen from within, and that's going to have an effect on the outside.
All right. So how about slightly elevated blood pressure and CVAC? We good?
No problem.
No problem. Good. When you come to the center, how many sessions do you get? As far as I think you mean CVAC, possibly, but it really depends on the doctor and their evaluation and then what they order. That's honestly, so it's hard to say, but it is dependent individually. So would it help with fibrogen levels and D-dimer levels? Again, I assume we're still on the CVAC, or maybe we're at, I think the BEMER would certainly help with that for sure, but maybe the CVAC as well. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, so many of these, like I said, are just working at that cellular level, and then the body, I mean, it starts doing its job. It starts to regulate. So, I've seen people improve with just the BEMER, just the CVAC. The combination, usually it's a lot faster.
Yeah, the D-dimer, the thickness of the blood. I would think that the BEMER would be really good for that. I would think.
Yeah,
I'm not
thing
saying
with
that CVAC wouldn't.
so they're obviously we have some clients that have that specific thing going on where they actually have to get blood taken out because the blood is so thick. CVAC does increase EPO and everything, but it's not going to do it above and beyond. Like if you're a person that already has that going on, it's not going to make it even more so, but it's not probably going to diminish it either.
Okay. All right. So how do these therapies help with blood sugar? I was trying to think of that answer. Well, I'm not sure specifically. I'm trying to think of the biochemistry. I mean, blood sugar, oxygen is definitely going to be a huge factor for sure. So, but as far as, and that will help the negative effects of low blood sugar or high blood sugar. High blood sugar is going to decrease oxygen for sure. And it's going to create damage. It's going to create cellular damage, tissue damage. That's where, people have amputations and things like that. So these would definitely be a help with the side effects. I'm just not sure right off the top of my head how much it would help with diabetes specifically, right?
BEMER, I mean, I'm not allowed to discuss,
No, sure.
but
No, you
let's
can,
just say the body regulates, and I
yeah,
have seen
some
all
changes.
of those
Okay.
diagnoses start to dissipate.
Well, listen, again, I'm a big fan of, okay, you use these things, then you're working on, obviously dietary changes. You're working on anti-inflammatory because the cell, basically what happens with diabetes or high blood sugar is the cell becomes resistant most of the time, right? So my glucose can't get into the cell. So that's called insulin resistance. Now, fasting can help with that. Paleo type diets can help with that. High intensity exercise can help with that. There's certain supplements that help create a more, what I would call, it goes from hard cement to wet cement so that the glucose could get into the cell. So those strategies combined with these, I think would be lights
CVAC,
out.
actually, Harvard did a study on insulin resistant diseases, and CVAC was proven to have a positive effect on that.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
okay.
It's major
All right.
So we have people coming in. I always have to be so careful because
no, for sure. There's your that's a big part of your answer,
study
Steve. Yeah, there's a study.
That, so.
Okay, so good. All right. I'll read up because I'd like to know the biochemistry. But again, oxygen is just king, so or queen. All right. So let's see. So CVAC session, I personally not even 100% sure what the cost is here.
I don't know what it is here.
Okay.
I don't want to guess.
Yeah, right. So I'll get Margaret, I'll get that
less
to you.
than hyperbaric though, for sure. So
for sure. I'll get that to you for sure. All right, lymphedema and live in New Mexico. Does anyone in New Mexico has CVAC machine?
Oh, you know what? There used to be one. If you go, you just Google CVAC with New Mexico and see what comes up. They might still have one there. I'm pretty sure. Work with a ton of people with lymphedema. It's incredible what it does and how it works with the lymphatic system.
Perfect. All right. So any of these affected by the frequencies transmitted by the vaccine? I heard of a study where there wasn't the expected positive effect. That's a little bit, yeah, it's an area that we have to be super careful with. Let's see. I'm not sure the first, are any of these affected by the frequencies transmitted by the vaccine? Meaning, I'm not sure, like, are any of these affected?
So I know that, like, with high inflammation, spike protein, stuff like that, that these technologies really help mitigate a lot of that.
Yeah, we're actually putting together kind of a long haul COVID slash, issues related to the vaccine protocols together because we're just seeing
it's insane.
It's insane. Yeah, let's put it that way. I live in New York City or maybe NC, North Carolina. Sorry, I thought I saw the Y. How would I find out where the closest CVAC?
There's a
Google.
CVAC there. Just Google CVAC with North Carolina.
Older BEMER regarding fitted sheet.
So the older BEMER does not have the BEMER bed, but it does have the sleep program. In fact, that's what's on my bed right now. You just take it out of the cover. It is pretty thin, and I just have it under my fitted sheet and mattress protector. I can't even feel it.
So technology machine that kills parasites by targeting their specific frequency. The one here is the F-scan, is the machine that can find them, and then the Firefly is what kills them. But Rife technology can do that, and I just found out that the BioCharger has some programs in there to do it as well.
100%.
All right. So CVAC and price, we talked. Oh, CVAC is, you said what? Hundreds.
So
It's
new
like
ones
a
are
lot of
about
money.
170,000. There's very few distributors. We're actually a distributor because I have been involved for so long. So it's, yeah, it's new. It's out the door going to be about 170,000 when shipping, tax, all that's associated with it.
Let's order one tonight, right?
Yeah, why
Let's
not?
get one. Okay, so do any of these help with multiple myeloma? Just like any cancer or any disease process, oxygen, microcirculation, detox, things like that are all going to be super, I think, necessary when you're dealing with any type of cancer, multiple myeloma notwithstanding. So yes, 100%. And I think that that's when we talk about the four pillars, incorporating each of those pillars to the best of your ability is going to create more predictability in that plan. And even if you have to do ongoing, medications, totally understand some of these cancers are just, there's a necessity there. But if we can fill in those blanks with these other 19 chapters of the 20 chapter book, I think for sure it's only going to increase your upside. Fair?
Yes.
Okay, so same thing. Somebody asked if there's any CVAC machines in New York.
There used to be. COVID kind of took that company out of business. I think the closest one is New Hampshire now.
Okay, so again, Google maybe and see what's local. So, okay, gang, let me see here. Let's go back to the slideshow, and let me just make sure I give you at least some of this information, because we get calls after these cancer conversations. We get calls constantly. So if you're inquiring a patient that's diagnosed with cancer or trying to prevent reoccurrence, the Cancer Center for Healing is the website to look on. The number is 949-867-6374. Vicky and Tracy do a really good job of helping you out there. Hyperbaric, which includes the CVAC, is 949-680-1904, or that department, I should say, includes the CVAC. And you have the Hyperbaric Oxygen Institute.com. Your center side, so if somebody's interested in doing some of these modalities, doesn't have cancer, hasn't had, or maybe hasn't had it for a long time, and they're just looking for that wellness type of approach, then the centerfornewmedicine.com is the website. 949-867-6419 is the number. So, and then the supplement store, we really didn't talk much about the supplements, but with the BEMER and the BioCharger, you could call 949-997-0821. They'll have information on those for you. Okay. Well, I wanted to take the time to thank Heather, because I thought that was fantastic. I have a much better understanding of everything as well. And that's the beauty of having some of the experts on. So we appreciate it. And gang, listen, have a good couple weeks. We'll see you in 2 Tuesdays. If you need anything, you have any questions or concerns, reach out. I think the objective of certainly this cancer conversation and what we're trying to do in the world, if you will, is a movement. And I think you're totally on board with that mentality
100%.
where, again, you have this and it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just short. It's incomplete. There's so many more things that we could do to increase your upside these days, but you don't necessarily get it, in that environment. It's just, this is what you do. I was at the bank today talking to one of the gentlemen who was helping me with something, and he's younger. He said, "Hey, what do you do?" And we were talking. He's like, "I never even thought of that. I never even thought, oh, cancer, you just get chemo and that's it. I never thought that there's this other world." And now he's like, "Well, give me your card. Let me know." I mean, once you hear it, I think you're just like, "Oh my gosh, why isn't everybody doing this stuff?"
I mean, you guys are super early adoption. Like, you guys have always been on the forefront.
You're right. And that's
same thing with the clients and everything.
So. Yeah, no worries. I got you. I got you back. All right, gang. Well, listen, have a great couple of weeks. Again, if you need any help, you just have questions, reach out. I'll personally be happy to help. I know Heather will as well. So have a great couple of weeks. Okay. Much love, gang. Be good.